Welcome to the 6th episode in a Legendarium series about Rome's great crisis of the 3rd century. In this episode, Restoration of the Empire, we will talk about how Rome split 3 ways during the height of the 3rd century crisis. For a time, its Asian provinces were ruled by a rebel queen named Zenobia, who even took over Egypt. However, she would be confronted by a new emperor named Aurelian. In the 260s, a renegade commander named Postumus led the Rhine River legions in taking over the western provinces and breaking away from the main empire. At first, the people of the West embraced him because Postumus was better able to stop barbarian invasions than the rulers in Rome. Meanwhile, Lucius Septimus Odantius, the governor of Syria, ruled the east from Palmyra, a fabulously wealthy Silk Road town that grew rich off taxing merchant caravans coming all the way from China and India. However, Odantius was confronted by the Persian king Shapur, who had ransacked Antioch twice during the 3rd century and took one Roman emperor captive. Shapur also shook down the Roman caravanners, which led to Odantius's treasury becoming empty, so not surprisingly, he led the East Romans in a war against Shapur. After winning a series of victories over the Persians, Odantius effectively became the king of Roman Asia. However, he was killed sometime around 266 during a hunt, and his wife Zenobia, then aged 27, effectively became queen of Rome's eastern provinces. Like her husband, Zenobia dreamed of becoming empress one day, and she had grown fabulously wealthy from her husband's victories over Shapur. She used it to create an extravagant court of intellectuals, writers, and philosophers. She was waited on hand and foot by eunuch servants. She and her entourage wore dresses made from silk brocades and had Bedouin soldiers serving in her army. Meanwhile, in the central part of the empire, Claudius II made a man named Aurelian his cavalry commander. Claudius II faced a new invasion by the Alemanni, who actually made it as far south as North Italy. For the first time in centuries, people in Italy faced an invasion. The Alemanni looted and burned their farms and carried the women and children off to slavery. While Claudius was able to defeat the Alemanni, he died of plague not long after, becoming one of the few Roman emperors of the 3rd century crisis to die of natural causes. For about 17 days, a man named Quintillus took over the Roman Empire until Aurelian relieved him of his duties, forcibly of course, and Quintillus died by suicide. Not surprisingly, Zenobia saw all of this chaos and saw the chance to take a little more. So Zenobia sent an agent named Timogenes to start a revolt in Roman Egypt. And once the riots began, Zenobia, very conveniently, headed south as Rome's supposed friend to help them crush this little revolt. The governor of Roman Egypt saw through her game and forced her army to return to the border. But instead of going home, she wheeled around, wiped out the Roman army, and seized control of Egypt. Soon after, the governors in the Levant and Asia Minor accepted her rule, in large part because they thought she would be empress soon. Zenobia took the title of Augusta, usually reserved for the imperial family, and began freely negotiating with foreign powers, and even dared to cut off Rome's grain supply from Egypt. Egypt wasn't just critical to Rome because of its grain. It was the center of world trade at the time. While the Mediterranean trade had gone into decline because of the endless wars, about half of the Roman Empire's taxes came from taxing goods that came from India and China and East Africa and passed through Egypt. No emperor could allow this rebel queen to keep control of the land of the pharaohs. However, Aurelian had trouble in the north to deal with first. While the Alemanni had retreated, a new barbarian nation called the Gethungi invaded the Danube provinces and North Italy. As they headed home with huge trains of loot, Aurelian was able to catch up with them. After surrounding them rather than just annihilating them, Aurelian forced them to make peace on his terms, and his terms included service in the Roman army. A united Roman and Jugunthi army then headed further east to deal with the Vandals in Pannonia. Rather than fight them directly, Aurelian adopted a scorched earth policy, shadowing the Vandals, burning all of the grain, poisoning all of the wells, and soon enough he was able to force them to go home. While Aurelian was very successful against foreign enemies, his own subjects had different feelings. Aurelian had announced a new anti-corruption campaign, aimed especially at the mint workers who had a bad habit of stealing the increasingly rare gold and silver put into Roman coins. Once the mint workers realized that their pockets could be getting much, much lighter, they rose in revolt. Aurelian's legions hurried home to Rome, and while they faced brutal street fighting that many were not used to, after all, the Roman legion was designed to operate in open ground, not narrow streets, Aurelian's legions were triumphant again, and most of the rebels were beheaded. Aurelian then endeared himself to the Romans by canceling all tax-related debts and making a bonfire of the records. He then built a 21-foot-tall wall around the city that was 12 miles long, having seen twice in the last few years that barbarians could make it close enough to menace mighty Rome itself. However, Aurelian had no intention of hiding behind those walls. In 272 AD, Aurelian began marching through Asia Minor. He offered mercy to all of the rebel-held towns that surrendered to them. And because many of the local governors had only sided with Zenobia because it seemed as if she was going to become empress, many local governors took Aurelian up on his offer. Zenobia soon realized that she wouldn't have much left to rule if Aurelian kept winning people over, so she met him at the Battle of Emae. And there Aurelian used the new Roman cavalry to great effect. He had his light cavalry charge in, make a fake retreat, and when Zenobia's soldiers broke ranks to pursue them, Aurelian's troop then encircled them and wiped them out. Zenobia fled the slaughter of her army, but was eventually caught at the Euphrates River. When the city of Palmyra made an abortive revolt against Aurelian's power, he had the city ransacked. He then headed west to deal with the other breakaway Roman Empire, the Gallic Empire. There, the Rhine River legions, who were supposed to be protecting the people of the West from barbarians, had become barbaric themselves. They had no discipline, they murdered and raised up new emperors whenever the mood took them, and they happily looted all of the farmsteads and towns within their empire. Needless to say, many welcomed Aurelian as he marched into the Gallic Empire and crushed the final Gallic emperor at the Battle of Chalon-sur-Marne. Aurelian had done the seemingly impossible. He had reunited Rome, and in a sign of revived Roman prosperity, a new construction project began: the Temple of Sol Invictus in Rome. While Aurelian still worshipped the traditional pantheon of Greco-Roman gods, as did many of his subjects, a new god had become fashionable. Sol Invictus, or the Unconquered Sun, was worshipped by many in the army, including Aurelian. Indeed, Aurelian seems to have hoped to make Sol Invictus the paramount deity of the Roman Empire. It offers a curious foreshadowing of the conversion to Christianity that would come only a couple of generations later. Indeed, the Temple of Sol Invictus was lavishly decorated, with its priests wearing jewel-encrusted robes. And Aurelian must have surmised that the idea of one empire and one emperor would be reinforced by one paramount god. However, he never had the chance to see how his experiment went. As he prepared for a new war against Persia, some members of his own household murdered him. Would the newly reunited empire be able to hold together without the great soldier emperor? We will find out in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this installment of the Legendarium. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.